I wanted to hop on here because I had a really great conversation with my 10-year-old daughter last night about the idea of neuroplasticity, which is basically a fancy way of saying that we have the capability to rewire our brain, to create new thought patterns in order to create new habits that we really want to step into, rather than repeating old habits that we don't want anymore. So, in 10-year-old terms, this is the way that I described it. I said, imagine that you're standing at the top of a snowy hill with a fresh coat of snow, and you put your sled down, and you are going to make a new sled path through the snow. Is your first run going to be your fastest run all day? And she said, no. And I said, why not? And she said, because you have to create the path first, right? You have to create that groove for your sled, push through some powder, push through some snow to get to the bottom. You'll make it, but it's going to not be your fastest one. So I said, what happens the second time? If you put your sled in the exact same groove, in the exact same spot, and you go down again? She was like, you'll go even faster. And then the third time and the fourth time, it'll get faster and faster and faster. This is how your brain creates new neural pathways. So what we were discussing was her sleep, because she had a pattern where about 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime, she would start to say, I don't think I'm going to sleep well tonight. And then her body would get really worked up because she was nervous about not sleeping well. And this is something a lot of adults struggle with too. The mind can really race in the evening. But it started to become such a pattern that she would tell herself she wasn't going to sleep well, like an hour before sleep. And then it just became this cycle. So when she mentioned it last night, I don't know if I'm going to sleep well tonight, I said, do you want to keep having that thought before bedtime? And she was like, no, I don't want to keep having that thought, right? It's not fun to be worried about sleep. And I said, what if I told you that there's a way to train your brain to have new thoughts? But it's not easy work, but you could do it. And she said, okay, teach me. And so I was like, okay, so that first pathway, the first pathway of the sled going down that's gotten so ingrained and so fast, that is you telling yourself that you are not going to be able to sleep at night. It is just kind of your go-to now before bedtime. You just fly down that path. And I was like, what happens if you turn your sled and you try to create a new path? And she said, it's going to be hard. And I said, why? And she's like, because you have to push through snow again and do all the work to create a new path. And I was like, exactly. But this is where your power really lies. So instead of being nervous about sleep, what would you like to feel about bedtime? And she said, I would like to feel like my bed is a cozy place to be and I'm excited to sleep. And I was like, perfect. That's your new path. And in order to create that new path in the snow, is it going to be as fast if you just go down at one time? And she was like, no. And I was like, so how many times do you have to go down that path to make it as fast as the first one? And she was like, a lot. And I said, exactly. So those moments that you notice yourself falling back onto the first path, when you notice yourself starting to think about how hard sleep is going to be, your biggest tool is going to be your attention, your spotlight of attention. So think about actors and actresses on a stage. When they want you to focus on that person on the stage, they'll put a big old spotlight on them so everyone in the audience knows who they're looking at. But if they want you to focus on something else on the stage, they'll move the spotlight and they'll put it on something else, and that's where your focus goes. So it's the same thing with your thoughts. You get to control the focus. Sometimes it doesn't seem like you're in control because those thoughts and those emotions can get really, really big. But if you can calm your body down, because that'll help you gain clarity in your mind, you can move the spotlight to where you want it to go. So in real time, if you notice yourself saying, I'm not going to be able to sleep well tonight, and you're about to go down that first path, pause. Don't get upset that you had the thought, right? But take 3 deep belly breaths. Because in those deep belly breaths, you are actually signaling to your brain that everything is okay. You are calming your body down. And then you create space so that you can take that spotlight in your mind and you can choose the thought that you want, even if it's hard at first, even if you might not believe it at first. The more often you can move the spotlight to, my bed is comfortable and I'm excited to fall asleep tonight, the stronger that second path is going to get, until eventually that is your go-to pathway and you have just rewired your brain. And she looked at me and she's like, why haven't you told me this before? And I think that as adults, I was still learning a lot of these concepts. Like even in my own life, the idea of neuroplasticity really wasn't talked about more than like 10 years ago. And so as I have been learning this, I have also been thinking, wow, this would have been a really powerful tool to know as a child. And so now I am trying to teach my kids and other kids some of these ideas and concepts in a way that they understand them. And so you can apply this to anything that you want. And I think it's usually best to work on like one thing at a time, because it does take a lot of focus and energy and attention to catch yourself when you're slipping back into old thoughts, and to be able to really move that spotlight of attention. And other tools that really help training basically your ability to control the spotlight, it's focus exercise. Because if you're so used to your mind being scattered all over the place, it can be hard to really take the spotlight and put it where you want it to go. So meditation is going to be a really big tool for this. Pausing during the day and taking deep belly breaths, even if it's for like 30 to 60 seconds, but just getting off a screen and feeling how your belly breaths feel. That trains your ability to focus in your mind and to choose where your spotlight goes. Getting outside in nature without screens and just noticing the things that you see outside, maybe even gazing at the clouds for a little bit, like you do when you're little kids, and seeing all the shapes in the sky. All of those things will help your mind get stronger and stronger so that you can really choose where your thoughts go.